I have a 6.6 MP to shape anyway.
Okay.
Okay, and I basically held off on shaping it because I know you with your proclivity for the stubbies and stuff would probably want to watch me shape one, you know, because like I said, they're pretty much of a mindfuck because what's going on with the whole thing, because you're tweaking everything. So I knew all these guys, but I was pretty much I was pretty much a lone wolf. I mean, gosh, if you lived in this area, Greg was a power. You know, I mean, look, the power period. Basically, with the seminal crew in terms of formulating the modern shortboard, I mean, Greg was right there. You couldn't ignore him, and nor would I have wanted to, but he was already on his trip by 73 or so. He was already, I mean, that's when, 73 was when Steve Krajewski basically was like, what, 71 or 72? You know, that's when Krajewski inherited Dora's mantle. He was the man at Malibu. You look at Steve Krajewski's boards, and Steve made a voluntary assessment. He says, I want the board to ride exactly the way I want on the very best wave of the day. He made an assessment that basically condemned him to a lot of weird surfing for most of the time. What's frightening is how user-friendly the GBs turned out. Yeah, you know, I mean, look, you're a stubby newbie. You just got on it. I've had like 24 full stubby newbies. I mean, just your typical bro hammer, belly rubber kids. Hop on them and go, yeah, it's kind of fun, dude. At first, I'm going, I did something wrong here. They should be Skippy the Starfish on the face their first like 3 or 4 waves, you know, and I'm okay with it because it's doing what a stubby's supposed to do, you know, so if it runs, it runs. This one right here, this is Theodore Ted Batty Treloar, who is the other guy who's doing some really, really sterling surfing in Morning of the Earth. See, this is the kind of trip I did, is that Batty is around 6'3". Measure this thing out, figure out that if it's 6'3", how far the 12-inch mark was, work out a template on that. So you see this, like, that's what all these friggin' numbers are, just basic proportions.
Right.
You measure it in millimeters, like this 50 millimeters, 36.5 millimeters, 24 millimeters. His inseam right here is 140 millimeters. That's how long his leg is. It doesn't make much difference. I can show you what's going on, though. I can have this board close to what a computer would end up with, 40 minutes absolutely max. On a typical shortboard, or like say a quad fish is just a good example, it's closer to like 30 minutes at the most. Well, in that 30 minutes, you know, I could start on a blank just like this, and I can make a totally different rocker, I can make a totally different thickness distribution, I can do anything that a computer wouldn't do. The ones that, you know, like you give them a board and then they clone it and then they go through. Because those things put boards out, they grow and shrink boards proportionally. I had a real big oaf that wanted a really small board. And to hold them up, I wanted to make the tail thicker. Well, I couldn't do that on the computer. I could send in my order and get a board thicker, but it would be proportionally thicker. Be thicker in the middle, be thicker in the nose, it'd be like in a proportion thing. Guy might need some more width. A guy might have a size 13 foot and be able to handle like just a preposterous width. Well, I couldn't do extra width, say in the middle of the tail, and keep the nose the same. The computer's gonna give me the same thing. And there's certain corners on surfboards which are like so empirically derived, so trial and error derived, like wings, bumps, things like that. They're there for the human physics, and they're not there out of mathematics. You know, it's no mistake that no one still makes fine French curves without, you know, except for by eye, that they're just like a group of people that know how to, you know, like do the Nautilus. I might shape 20 boards in a week, but each one of those 20 individual saps is just going to get one of them. You know, that's the only board they're going to get. Like 90% is not good enough. You know, it's like, unless I'm going to like dog somebody who's bothering to buy one of my boards, then every single one of them's got to be right. You know, and I try never to forget the fact that each board is going individually to some individual. It's the only board they're going to get. Maybe for a year, maybe for longer. So, you know. Besides, it's like way more fun to have the variation in what you're shaping. The whole thing about surfing is that it's not like any other hydrodynamic sport, because the user interface, like in other words, how the person weights and what the guy is doing, totally makes the board ride or not ride depending on the board. It makes surfing totally and completely subjective. There's no right or wrong way to surf, and if that wasn't the case, I would have stopped shaping years ago, because it would have gotten way too boring.